Laura, and today we're going to be talking all about how you can show up more consistently in your coaching business. Now, this is something that I've really felt that I wanted to do better in the past. I know that my clients, I know that a lot of you guys, it's something that comes up a lot, this feeling like, if only I could be more consistent with marketing, if only I could be showing up more consistently in my coaching business, then things would be better and my coaching business would grow more. And it was really interesting when I was thinking about this whole episode of the show and thinking about this topic. It actually brought up a lot of memories around healthy eating and being a health coach, because again, that's something that a lot of people would say to me is, Laura, I just wish I could be more consistent with healthy eating, more consistent with exercise. And again, those are all thoughts that I had for myself as well. So it's really interesting just that parallel came up for me. But I do feel like it's an interesting thing, isn't it, consistency? We sometimes think that being consistent is this thing that's going to fix everything, and I rarely think that that's the case. However, I do believe that there is something to be said about consistency and there is something helpful about aiming to be more consistent, because I do think when we show up consistently over a period of time, it does help us get results. Sometimes I think a lot of my success really is being because I just keep on showing up in business, and certainly in the early days I just kept blogging, and kept showing up and kept doing it, and it created the snowball effect. So I totally get why we feel that we should be more consistent. We're going to really break this down and look at some specific things that you can do to improve your consistency and how you show up in your coaching business, but we're also going to look at what consistency actually is and some of the things that get in the way as well. So I think the first thing that we need to recognise is that we all have busy lives. We are all still in a pandemic. Things are still a bit uncertain and a bit unsettled. We've had a crazy couple of years. A lot of us might be building our coaching business alongside a job, like another full-time job or another part-time job. Our coaching business might be the side hustle at the moment. So there's lots of these different factors that are going to come in to make your situation unique. You might be a parent, you might be caring for elderly relatives. Like, everyone has a different situation that is going to impact the way that they can show up. So I think something that we often do as well is compare ourselves to other people. We never know what other people's personal situation is. So even comparing someone else who's got kids and they seem to be showing up all of the time, try not to get bogged down in comparison, because we never know what that person's situation is, what access to resources they have, and all of that jazz. So we're going to ditch comparison. We're going to focus on ourselves when it comes to what consistency is going to mean. And I think the first thing to consider is actually deciding on what a realistic, doable baseline of consistency would look like for you in the phase of life that you're in right now. So if I write one blog post a month, if I post on Instagram twice a week on the grid and do some random stories, like, decide on what a doable baseline is for you. And I think that's a really helpful starting point. But like I said before, I think something that we need to have in place to help us be consistent is a way to de-overwhelm ourselves and keep it simple. And I feel like a lot of us struggle to be consistent because so many of us don't know what the fuck we're supposed to be doing to grow our business. Like, we're just throwing spaghetti against the wall. We're not sure exactly what we should be doing, when we should be doing it. We've got a vague idea that we should be posting on social media, or that we should be doing this, or that we should be doing this strategy or whatever. But I think unless you have that overarching planned out strategy that really makes sense, I think it can make it really quite difficult to know what you should be doing. So I think the first thing to help you become more consistent is to have some kind of plan of action, some kind of strategy, so that you know what it is that you're doing. So this brings me nicely into a couple of things that I wanted to mention in today's episode. First of all, if you're a new coach, if you're just starting your coaching business and you're listening to this, do go and download my free Zero to Launch guide, and that's a full checklist. It's designed to be done in about 3 months, where you can get a checklist of everything that you need to do to start and launch your business. So find the link for that in the description box below, or in the blog post if you're checking this out on the blog, and that will be, check that out, get that free download, and that will give you a full list. If you're a bit further on in your business and you're struggling with the strategy and you just need to get the plan of action down, then I've got a brand new offer that is launching this week, which is my business plan and strategy sessions. So these are one-off sessions, they're 2 hours long, And what we do in these sessions is we sit down and we strategize together and get a really robust plan of action. I will sit with a Google Doc open. I've been doing these for people as part of their one-to-one mentoring packages, and I really enjoy doing them. I think I mentioned this I mentioned this on the Facebook Live I did actually in my Facebook group last year, that I was going to launch this offer because it just felt really fun. So yes, we'll sit down for 2 hours, we really strategize. I sit with a Google Doc, we create your plan, and then you go away with a full plan of action. You know exactly what you're going to be doing, how often you're doing it, what you should be doing that's going to actually grow your business. You also have 2 weeks of Voxer and email, voice note and email support after that session. So if you listen to this and you feel really overwhelmed, you're not sure exactly what you should be doing, perhaps you feel that the things that you are doing just aren't working and you need a fresh perspective, then this could be really good for you. The full price is going to be £500 for that offer, but you can get it for $297 if you join before the end of January. So there's going to be a link below. I'll be honest, I haven't even written the sales page for this yet. I was just really excited about it. So there will be a link where you can book. There might not be a lot of information on there, but there will be something if that feels like it would be helpful for you. And this really is a great offer if you know that actually you can, once you've got a plan, you can just crack on and get shit done. You don't need a lot of handhold, and you just need to know what it is that you're doing is the right thing to be doing, and want someone to discuss that with. That's going to be absolutely perfect for you. If you need more handhold, and if you need more kind of general support, then my one-to-one mentoring or my Wholehearted Business Group program might be a better fit. But just wanted to mention that, so do go and check that out if that sounds like it would be useful. So I think that's the first thing when it comes to being consistent, is to make sure that you're not overwhelmed and make sure that you actually have a plan of action, because that's going to make a huge difference. If you don't have that, then it's really easy to not be consistent because you don't really know what consistency is or what you should be doing to be consistent. So that brings us on to our next point around being consistent, which is to automate and organize. So this is something that you can do which just saves you a bit of time and saves you a bit of the legwork when it comes to actually putting things into action. So when we automate, it can be things like using a scheduler. So perhaps that's scheduling your Instagram posts on Planoly. It could be using a tech tool like Social Bee to schedule loads of posts to go out on a Facebook group, for example. It could be automating some of your client getting activities. It could be around anything to do with your content marketing, as I've already mentioned, around your social media and scheduling, that kind of stuff. It could be around your financial management, but anything around that's going to help you be more organized, that where you can automate stuff so that you can do stuff at one point in time and have it come out at another point in time. That can be really useful. There's some great different tools that you can use around all of this stuff. If organisation in general is something that you want support around, again, I do have my planning templates for coaches, which is just £14, and I will pop a link in for that as well. So that's just a whole package of planning templates and stuff that you can use too. Also things like client onboarding systems. Dubsado is a CRM tool that works really well. I use it in my business and I absolutely love it. That can work super well for saving time when it comes to onboarding clients. It also has a scheduler, so anything that saves time, that takes some of the legwork out, that automates stuff, is going to help you show up a little bit more consistently, and can work super well. Then the next thing is to look at where you can systematize things. So if you know, for example, with the Wholehearted Business Show, I have a full system around how I put this together and put it out every single week. And that has just come from doing it a couple of times over and then learning that this is the best way and this is the workflow for it. So now myself and my VA, I'm going to come on to outsourcing and VA stuff in a moment, but now we know exactly what we do. So the exact process that it takes to take this video that I'm recording right now and to make that into a YouTube video and a podcast and a blog post and put that out in different places. So anything that you can systematize around your content, around your client on board and stuff, create a system and a workflow around that and then automate it. These things go together. That's really going to help you have more time and more headspace so that you can show up more fully and with more consistency in your business. And then next, think about how you can outsource things. Now, I appreciate that not everyone is going to be in a position to outsource things in the business, depending on where you are, because obviously there's a financial element of that. But I really do think that even quite early on, it can really help. Looking at your business and looking at where you perhaps struggle a little bit, or look at what doesn't come naturally. And I mean, I'm not necessarily one of these people who believe like we should just outsource everything that isn't in our zone of genius. I don't know how financially viable that is for a lot of businesses, but I do think that even a little bit of outsourcing can help. So in my business, that looks like me outsourcing quite a bit of stuff to my VAs. So I have 2 VAs. I have one VA who does a lot of stuff around Pinterest for me, and she also does some general admin. I have another VA who does my customer service inbox and who helps me with Instagram, and that really helps me be consistent. I probably wouldn't be anywhere near as consistent with Instagram, like grid posts and reels and stuff, if it wasn't for having Gem and knowing that she's there and waiting for stuff, and that she's going to create stuff for me based on my own content and stuff, which is another nice segue into our next point in a sec. But it really just helps. So it could be, and it doesn't have to be simply just like an ongoing VA. It can be a one-off task that you outsource to someone. Like I outsourced my Dubsado setup to Laura from Shoreway Business, and that was really great because it was going to be a total headache. It was really great just to send that off to someone and let someone else do that, because it saved me headspace and time so that I can focus on other things. That is what helps keep me consistent. And then the next thing is to repurpose. I'm such a big believer in this. I think if you are creating content for your marketing, any kind of content in your business really, then it just makes sense to look at the ways that you can repurpose that and reuse it, recycle it, so that you are not having to start from scratch every single time you sit down to write an Instagram post, or every single time you sit down to put something in your Facebook group. I think anything that you can repeat, recycle, repurpose is going to save you time, and that is all going to help you be more consistent because you're not having to think of ideas from scratch. If you combine that, for example, with some automation, like do all of my scheduling of Instagram, in Planoly, then that just makes, that really helps me be consistent, because if I was having to sit every morning and write an Instagram caption and then post it, it would not be happening. I can tell you that for now. So those things can really help. For example, with Pinterest, there's a tool called Tailwind, and that can again help automate and schedule all of your Pinterest stuff. There are costs associated with this, and a bit like, again, this consistency is really joining up in my head with food stuff. I don't know why, but it's a bit like when it comes to food, you pay for convenience. You pay, if you're buying ready meals or packaged meals, whatever, you're paying extra for the convenience of not having to cook them. It's a bit like that in business. Like if you're using these tools that are going to save you time, there's generally a cost to saving time, and it's going to be around how you can balance that out in your business and make it make sense for you. And again, just going back to what I said at the start, like we all have individual circumstances. So what's going to help you be consistent is going to be different to what helps someone else be consistent as well. So that's repurposing. And then finally, batching content. So some people, like I've always been a bit backwards and forwards with batching. Some people find it really helpful. And I'm mainly talking about content here. And I think often when we do think about consistency, we are talking about how we're showing up and being visible consistently, which is our marketing and our content. So batching is basically doing a bunch of similar tasks at once. The theory behind this is that every time we change tasks, there's an energy output to that. So by doing more similar tasks in the same time frame, there's less of the energy wastage from having to jump between different tasks. I used to find it quite hard to batch certain things, and I still find there's like certain tasks in my business that just don't feel natural to batch, whereas there's other things that do. So for example, right now, this is the first video that I am recording in a little session that I'm going to do of recording episodes for the Wholehearted Business Show. So I'm batching right now, and I find this really helps. But I don't tend to batch like the editing. I tend to do that kind of slightly separately, but you can go with the flow with it. But that can really help with things as well. Another thing that I find useful is to have assigned days for different things. So again, if you are wanting to be more consistent with your visibility, it might be that like, okay, so Tuesday is the day that I show up and I do a Facebook Live. Wednesday is the day that I schedule all of my Instagram content. And that's all our stuff. And again, this heavily links into having that business plan, that business strategy that is going to tell you is what you're doing with, like, what is it you're doing and why are you doing it and what's the strategy behind it. That's really going to help. So having assigned days or kind of slots for things, or even just blocking time out in your calendar, if you use like even a paper calendar or an online calendar, just blocking that time out so that you always know, okay, so it's time for me to sit down and do that. And that's really going to help with you being consistent. But I think just to finish off, and I mean, I'll just recap those points. So we had the first one was to de-overwhelm yourself, keep it simple and have a strategy. That was the first point. Then to automate and organise. And then to systematize where you can, where you've got repeatable workflows, to outsource where you can, to repurpose, to batch, and then to block time out or block days out or whatever, so that you know when things are going to get done. So those are the main tools that I would use around being more consistent. But I think, just to finish off, I think the key thing is we can really use being consistent as like another stick to beat ourselves with, and another way that we can feel like we're failing. And I think it's really important that we do identify that it's not the end of the world if you miss a week on Instagram. It's not the end of the world if you don't write an email to your list this month. It's not the end of the world. Obviously, consistency does help, and I do think there is something to be said for showing up consistently over time in terms of helping you be more successful. I do think that does help, but it's not going to be useful if we beat ourselves up. And for any health coaches out there listening, you guys will know, and I'm sure you say this to your clients, I used to say this to mine, and I say this to myself all the time, you can eat healthily consistently as much as you want. When you fall off the wagon, it's not so much that you fell off the wagon, it's that you get back on and you get back into it. And I think sometimes from a mindset perspective, when we have a break in our consistency or we drop out of things, it's more of the mindset of getting back into it that is the battle, then that's going to cause the disruption than actually not being there for a day or for a week or whatever, for missing posts on Instagram for a week. Sometimes I think it's just the getting back into it that's actually the hardest thing. So I would really just think about your mindset around it a little bit. Think about what consistency needs to look like for you. And sometimes consistency isn't just social media, isn't just your marketing and visibility. If you're showing up in your business and doing something in your business to grow it, whatever that might be, whether that's tweaking your website or creating a website or talking to a friend about what it is that you do or going to a networking event or, loads of things that you could be doing, it doesn't just have to be like the very obvious visibility stuff. There's a lot of other ways that you can be consistent in your business. It might even be that you start writing a little list each week and just write down, okay, so what did I do for my business this week? What did I do? And even if you've just write one thing down, or I spoke to that person, I told them that I was a coach, that's something that you've done for your business. It could be, I posted something on Facebook this week, that's something you've done. Or I sent an email to that person to be a guest on their podcast. Like, even if it's just one thing, that counts. You get to decide what that looks like. And it really can really make a difference. But I hope that you found that super useful. Just a reminder again, download my free Zero to Launch guide, and that has a full checklist of everything that you need to do if you start up your coaching business. And if you're a bit further on and you want some support around developing a business plan and a business strategy, do check out my new offer, my business plan and strategy sessions, with that discount that's in place as well until the end of January. So I hope that that's been helpful. Give me a shout if you've got any questions. Please do, as always, leave a review. If you're listening on a podcast app, if you're listening on Apple, it's dead easy. Just click the little stars. I will love you forever if you leave me a review. Pop me a DM on Instagram at wholeheartedlylaura on Instagram. If you're watching this on YouTube, give me a thumbs up. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you're going to action. And if you're reading this on the blog, do leave me a comment below as well. But I hope that this has been helpful. I hope that this has given you lots of things to consider when it comes to being more consistent in your business. And I'll see you again next time. Bye.